Hello, Legionnaires, and welcome to some Rando RPG livestream. Tonight, our panel of Dungeon Masters, Game Masters, referees, storytellers, and players will share their diverse tabletop role-playing game experiences to provide ideas, suggestions, and possibly even some advice for your tabletop RPG sessions. Let's get started. All right, welcome to some Rando RPG livestream. Get that off the screen there. I am John Maxley-Oshlow, your host, and I'm truly grateful that you are with us for tonight's live stream discussion on Zero Prep Gaming. Actually, it should be called Zero Prep Game Mastering. I don't know why I never changed it. Either way, whatever. It's because Basic Expert demanded the word referee. I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I sincerely hope you enjoy the conversation we are going to have tonight. So, what do we do here on some Rando RPG live stream? Well, in segments 1 through 4, we discuss topics surrounding the tabletop role-playing game hobby with an emphasis on individual experiences, desires, and expectations. I really did try to get a diverse crowd tonight, but nope, all these weirdos agree on everything. So it's going to be like one person's talking. I'm kidding.
Diverse?
What?
Diverse?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are
We
you
got the
doing?
basic Mexican
What
with us tonight. I forgot about that.
You got an international panel tonight.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, diverse group of white guys. There we go.
Yeah.
Latino's the new white, so
Yeah.
It's the white. There you go. Wait, Latinx. Thank you.
yeah, we don't use that term.
You doesn't Spaniard with a bit of extra spice.
Anyway, on tonight's 4 segments of Zero Prep Game Mastering, hope to. Yeah, I already said that. We've ideas, suggestions, food for thought for your tabletop RPG sessions. In segment 5, if anybody hangs out, we let down our hair and just talk about nerd issues of interest. If we meet the giveaway threshold, segment 5 is when we will determine the winner. Please consider supporting a Legion of Myth through the links in the live stream's description. YouTube takes 30% and Twitch takes 50% of your hard-earned money, while Rumble, PayPal, Streamlabs, and Ko-Fi take between 0 and 5%. And yes, I do see the PayPal and Ko-Fis that come in. I appreciate you all who do that. I just don't announce it because you're kind of like the silent supporters, and I appreciate that. Rumble rants and super chats of less than $20 I will read at the end of the segment. Really the question. $20 or more, I will interrupt the segment to read your rant or chat as immediately as I can, but I will let somebody finish his thought first. $50 or more, I will take a drink in your name, and you can force the panel to answer any tabletop RPG related question of your choice right then and there. If we make $100 or more in super chats or Rumble rants, there will be a $100 Palladium Books or drive-through RPG gift card giveaway during segment 5 towards the end of the live stream. Legion with YouTube members as well as tonight's Super Chatters and Rumble Ranters have the opportunity to win, but you must be watching at the time of the giveaway to claim your victory, else it rolls over to next week. I have a special announcement here, but take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. So Avenger Satana sent me a message stating, quote, "He'd be happy to donate a Shadow Alt PDF to anyone who donates $5 or more." I asked him how he wants people to contact him. He hasn't responded back. So take that with a grain of salt in case it's a troll. I don't think so. Avenger doesn't typically troll, but I'm not responsible for this. So you can check out Shadow Chalt on Drive-Thru RPG via the link in the description. But like I said, Venger did not get back to me on how he wants people to coordinate with him, but I am not Venger, so work that out with him, not with me, if you donate $5 or more. Don't forget, Legion of Myth moderators will time out or even ban people who attack any panelist or chatter. Attack the argument, not the person, and keep your various social media beefs off of my show. Please like this video, subscribe to all the panelist channels found in the description. Yes, I worked ahead of the game today. I'm on it. So they're all already in the description. And thank you for your time and support. Whew, that was a long one. Now, all of that out of the way. Joining me tonight is over here with Mr. Max Van. Who are you? What content or products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
I'm just a normal man. I love God and my country and my beer cold. And I've been playing role-playing games since the 90s. And I have a channel called Reactionary Principle Gaming that you can go watch. And we focus mostly on roleplay and try to find it what it is in its purest form, I guess, while still being a game, obviously.
Okay. Below him, we have Victor. Welcome back, Victor. Who are you? What content or products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
I'm Victor. I write modern setting stuff for OSR games mostly. Go get Modern Necessities right now on Drive2RPG. You can buy the PDF. Making the on-demand version soon. Yeah, I've been playing role-playing games since the early 2000s, and yeah, that's about it. And I'm a co-host on Natural Ones every Wednesday with that guy over there.
Natural ones? Don't you mean natural 20s? Come on, you got to get that critical hit. You guys aren't failures.
Well, it's like a pun, you know, like we're natural ones, like we're one, like individuals as ones, natural.
Oh, it's got entendres built in. Get it? Kind of like our RPG Digest show. People don't understand that what it actually means, but we'll go on here. So, Hector is with us tonight again. Thank you very much, sir. Who are you? What content or products do you create, and what is your tabletop RPG experience?
My name's John, also known as the Basic Expert. Obviously, I write a lot of old school game stuff. I have my own YouTube channel. I have been gaming since the mid 2000s. I got into it later as an adult, so wasn't allowed to play RPGs as a kid. So for various religious reasons from my folks, but I'm happy to be here now. And once I got in, I've been all about it since. So yeah.
All right. Well, tonight's show is going to be about zero prep, and I have three people that have maybe a little bit different take, but generally they're all in some way, shape, or form zero prep folks. So this isn't going to be an argumentative one. This is going to be an informational one. So since he's on the top there, we're going to start with Mr. Max Boivin. Segment 1 here is going to be about what is it? Just what is zero prep to you? So first question is what does zero prep game mastering mean to you?
Zero prep means that you show up to the session. Like, you can have a session 0. That's fine. You're with the player, and you define the premise. This is what the game is going to be about, right? But you don't pre-write a story. You don't prepare encounter. You don't create set piece and map and stuff like that. You show up to the game. We're ready, and we just play, right? Basically, you could have your session 0 and start like playing right away because like the character have been made. Then we're ready to go. For me, that's what zero preps mean. That's the essence of it. Is like you try to cut as much as possible, and between session 0 and the session 1, you can think about what you want to do. You can think about the setting and stuff like that, right? Don't write anything down. Don't get married to your idea. Be willing to go with the flow, improvise, adapt, change things. That's the zero prep mentality for me, right? Just like you show up and you make it up.
So I know that you, as being an advocate of the 4D role playing, you definitely lean heavily on the role playing side of things. So, what core principles or guidelines do you follow when running a zero prep game?
Well, it's a lot about the player agency, right? The more you prep, the more you'll be tempted at least to reroll your player. Because if you like, in the extreme, like people that do like those setting in the VTT when they create all the dynamic lighting and stuff like that, you prepare this encounter. Well, you can be fucking sure that the player is going to end up there at some point, right? Because you put all this work into it. Like, I want my player to have like their agency, that they control their character, they can decide what they want to do, right? We agreed on the premise, what the game is going to be about. But then from then on, they're free to do whatever they want. So to leave that freedom, I need to react to what they do, right? So that's for me like the big premise is that it's all about like freedom, right? And we all like you have to change your mindset. That it's not about like the game is not about like it's a cooperative experience. It's not about like trying to win at D&D and like trying to defeat the GM encounter and balance stuff like that. No, we're just there together to have an experience together, right? To live something, to create this alternate reality. So, and the zero prep allow us to create it together as we go. We put the brick in front of us as we walk on the path.
Okay. Victor.
Yes.
Same question for you. What does zero prep game mastering mean to you?
It's basically a reaction to kind of like the eternal over prepper, to the kind of person that won't start a campaign until they've like written like a whole notebook full of plot hooks and story and NPCs and all that stuff. And there's a big movement, especially in like 5e and stuff, that insists that is the proper way to run games, that you have to do that to run a successful game. And I disagree with that. I think it's enough to just have like some rules mastery. to be able to like look up rules on the fly, even if you don't have them in your head, but at least know where you're looking in the book, to be able to use the tools that the game provides. So in D&D especially, you have like dungeon generators, you have like random tables, you have like oracles and stuff. Be able to use those to generate a story on the fly, and just have a good mental Rolodex of the kind of genre that you're running. If you're running fantasy, you should probably have read like a bunch of fantasy books that you can steal stuff from, basically, just as it comes up. And yeah, just be a neutral referee. Don't be the story master, the realm weaver, whatever. Just be just be the neutral referee that what's the word? I can't think of the word right now, but that just adjudicates like what the players are doing, and yeah, pretty much that.
Okay. How do you differentiate? And I'm asking this because we kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand. How do you differentiate between zero prep and low prep game mastering?
Actually, that's really hard to differentiate because zero prep doesn't truly mean zero. It's kind of like a meme term, just because if, like I said,
so it's not this puritanical thing where
No.
don't ever look at books,
No,
don't ever
no,
prepare
no.
anything to have nothing in your head.
Yeah, you have to be a bit hyperbolic in internet discourse, especially. And like I said before the stream, if we called it sometimes prep, we wouldn't probably be doing the stream because nobody would be interested. But the fact that we called it zero prep, people got mad about it, and it sparked discourse, and now it is. Yeah. So no, that's not really that much of a distinction, and ultimately, it's up to the person running it what means zero to them. Like so.
Okay. All right, and then over to the basic expert over there. Same question for you. What does zero preparation game mastering mean to you?
I think that it's an ideal. It's like a goal that you're always striving for. Like the ideal would be I'd love to just sit down and just play a game without any preparation whatsoever. And I think that certain games you can do that, especially if you have rules mastery of it, and the game itself has proper tools in order for you to use it in such a manner. But for me, it's like an ideal thing. Sometimes I show up with like a map, like I'll make a map before the adventure or before the campaign. Like that's my campaign prep, is like I'm gonna make a map and put some settlements and dungeons and locations on there. So some people be like, well, that's prep. And it's like, well, and they think it's like a gotcha, but for me, it's always just like, I'm always striving. I'm always aiming for zero prep, to someday sit down at the table and it's like, let's just make it up. And I have done that before. I have done it where I've absolutely done nothing. Here's some hex paper. Here's a hex. You guys are here. Try and explore the wilderness and let's see what happens. I have started games that way before as well. So to me, Mr. Max talked about player agency. I think that's a big key component of it as well. You can't go in thinking that you're going to railroad your players. So I agree with that aspect, that you do need good players that are willing to take ownership of their characters and their motivations and goals and set goals for themselves and pursue after them, with you using the rules to adjudicate the outcome of the pursuit of those goals. So
how did you first encounter the concept of zero prep game mastering?
I think it's just looking at old rules. When you look at old games, like, I got like Traveler here, Classic Traveler. You look at the rules within something like this, and there's tables upon tables of stuff that you can use for, getting a patron, cargo. Is the ship going to get hijacked? I'm just using Traveler as an example. You can roll up a planet and it's law level, it's government, all that stuff on the fly. And you sort of just build something as you go. You can kind of build a world as you go. And so I think when I realized that, and then also through solo gaming, I love solo gaming. I know you don't like solo gaming, but I like.
No, if you call it solo gaming, it's fine. There's no such thing as a solo RPG, and that's going to be a topic for a few weeks from now.
Well, I think I'll tune in for that one because I'm interested in seeing what people's opinion of that is. Because I think that it maybe not be as pure as like with other people where you're able to riff off other people, but I think that so for me, solo gaming and seeing something where like I sit down as a game master myself and as a player, and then I have these motivations that I just sort of construct, and then I use the rules to adjudicate that, and then what happens, that was and doing that on the fly by yourself is good practice. I think that's when I realized, like, oh, okay, like there's something to this where you can actually create something cohesive and interesting, and fun without without gobs of hours of prep before, like I think a lot of people kind of expect a game master to do in a conventional sort of game.
Yeah, we probably get into it a little bit, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but one of the things I learned a long time ago is that over prepping is a thing as well. And it becomes frustrating when you spend weeks or months or days or whatever making something and the players just never go that way or never meet whatever it happens to be that was there. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a good balance here. Now we're at the part of the segment where if you guys have any questions for each other or anything you want to follow up with each other, please do. But I'm also going to throw this question out there, and it's for everybody. Answer it if you want, or just like I said, piggyback off each other. Can any of you describe a session where you successfully use the zero prep techniques? Now, I know that's going to sound, well, of course, we do it all the time. I mean, like something that impresses upon people, this is where you can get started in terms of zero prep.
I have on my channel actually like live session that we did. We called them like the ultimate zero prep challenge, right? It was me and my buddy Phil the Trill, that we would just go live, and oftentimes they'll show like decided like half an hour before go live or an hour before go live. We just like set up stuff it, and then like we show up there, we roll who's gonna GM, what system we're gonna use, what setting we're gonna do, and that's basically it, I guess. Maybe something else, and then like we just fucking go with it, right? So it's so zero prep that just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go GMing this Stone Age game using 5e. All right, let's go. Make a character. I'll think of something, and then we go, right? So that's we do it live because people say like, oh, zero prep doesn't happen, right? I say like, well, okay, let's do it fucking live, and we can show you that we can just fucking do it, right? At some point, like he was the GM, and just decide, okay, it's going to be a modern game using I think it was like a total party skill system, right? And say, okay, there you go. That's what we play now. Just I make a character with that, and we go, right? Just like you can do it. It's just like it's not that hard. You just have to jump at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think a good example is probably on John's channel, the Scarlet Heroes games that we did, that I was a player in. Those were basically just done on the fly with John using like the oracles and the random tables and all that stuff. And in that 2-hour session, my character, which I probably made like maybe like 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the stream started, he ended up helping a farmer out. He ended up hiding in the farmer's basement from rampaging ogres. He got caught in a storm. He fought goblins. He went to a different city to deliver medicine. Like, he did all this stuff, and I was just in a 2-hour session, not planned at all, just using the tools that were at hand for that particular game. And yeah, it was fun. It was great. So yeah, that was a good example for zero prep, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say on my channel I have some things like that. I also have, I also play some games solo on my channel to kind of demonstrate the use, not necessarily to get people interested in solo gaming, but just so that you can kind of see that solo gaming is a tool to practice zero prep gaming as a GM. You just kind of put yourself in the position as a player, and you're like I said, I want to do this. Okay, now I'm going to put my GM hat on, use the rules to adjudicate how that occurs, and using oracles and stuff like that. So like Scarlet Heroes has good oracles, yes or no oracles, and descriptive oracles. I would say also for my Subscribe Star and Gilded and YouTube supporters, I've been running a white box game, which is like my 0E clone that has like chainmail elements, and I run that game completely like zero prep. I made a map, and that's about it. I use a lot of the tools that I provided in Whitebox that are just sort of like a rehash version of like the dungeon generator from Strategic Review or from 1E, and similar oracles like Scarlet Heroes of yes or no, and then lots of like adjective descriptive tables and things like that you can roll on in order to like what I need a word for this room, and you can just roll for like a random room for like a description of the room, NPC motivations, things like that. And so I use that for my players, and we've had so far in that campaign, just from zero prep, just making stuff up as we're all going along, massive battles between like the forces of the local church and the cleric fighting 150 orcs over the control of a village, and adjudicating mass combat in that regard, all the way to I kept rolling, for instance, giants as a random encounter in this one hex. It's just like this one hex. I just kept rolling giants as a random encounter. And so I just decided, it's the same giants that they're encountering, because they kept negotiating with them and sort of conning these giants because they're not very smart, And so now, we have a group of giants that have been sort of, they have some animosity towards the players now if they ever run into them again, because they've been conned by the players at least twice now. So, if they go, they kind of avoid that hex now because they know giants live in that hex. And, through Zero Prep, we've established that that's like a thing that's there. This is a hex that there's like a giant clan there. And they're like, we want to avoid that now. We don't want to go through that hex anymore. Lots of fun things like that,
You want snoo?
Because that's the thing, although I think we all like in favor like of Zero Prep or like aiming toward that, like we do it in a different way. Like I'm not against chart, but I'm much less rely on chart. But I think like it's just like a different approach that we get, right? And you interpret the chart, and that's fine, right? And you can do it in solo and stuff like that. I'm just like, I think charts are useful, that you can read them when you read the rules, stuff like that, and you can internalize them. And the seed for idea that you can like Victor was saying, like knowing the genre, right, that you're running, like that's like reading those charts, like it can put idea in your head, like, oh yeah, this kind of encounter would be cool, right? I read that on a chart and just would fit there in the moment. But I think it's also like the big difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, is that I think we might see like the role of the GM a bit different, that you see it like more as like a impartial referee. I see it, like as we see it, like it's more like we do it. What we do is like cooperative, right? I'm not against the player. I'm working toward the player. I propose like adversity to the character, but I work with and we all work together to create like something cool, right? A reality that makes sense, and an alternate reality, right?
Yeah, I think I see myself as I'm as fair as I possibly can be. I'm not working against the players, but I'm not working for them either. I'm working for simulating the world and the rules. That's how I see it.
I agree with that with you on that as well, like 100%.
And I think rules are there to simulate the world in a lot of ways. Those two things are like together. You put rules, like a random encounter table, for example, are rules. And so, in D&D, for example, you have random encounter tables for like a jungle. And so this already sort of automatically curates a lot of things and sort of keeps things from going crazy. You're not going to get like, why is there a polar bear in the jungle? The jungle, the like good. This is why I said earlier that tools are important. The tools in the game are important because you want to have tools that are going to where the game designer already curated so many things for you that you don't have to worry about it. So it's like, oh, you're in the jungle and you ran into lizard men. That makes perfect sense, or you're in the desert and you ran into nomadic traders. That also makes sense. So I just lean heavily into that. And for me, because I'm a dad and I have a 4-year-old who is just crazy, I don't have time to sit, and I've said this many times, I don't have time to sit and like prep some epic plot. I don't even have time to prep plot points. The most I have time to do is sit down, maybe make a few maps, if that, and get ready for game night, and that's it. So I view like proper tools and the role of the referee as like, these are just prompts that I'm using, and like what you said, Vic, with a good knowledge base on the material that a lot of the game is based on. So for D&D, it's pulp fantasy and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm familiar with Conan and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser and Michael Moorcock's work and things like that. So I can look at the tables, get results, and be like, I have this toolbox of game tools and a toolbox of media that I can draw from in order to create something on the fly there. So,
yes.
All right. Let's hit some of the chat here. No super chats yet, but there were a couple things that were worth taking a look at. Zolinar says, rules mastery is very important to have a smooth session. It saves you time during the session, helps staying in the game. This will be a topic for a future segment, actually in 2025, that I'm working on. But yes, I am one of those people that say that, other than your first time ever playing, if you're part of this hobby, you actually need to put some dedication into it, which means read the dang book.
Yeah.
If you
GM and players.
Right. Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah. This whole idea that dungeon masters or game masters don't read rule books just blows my mind. But even if you're a player, you should know everything your character can do, how it works, so forth. Well, I just show up and play. No, there is actually an expectation. Any hobby that you're in, whether you're in the bowling league, whether you're on the football team, whether you do model airplanes, it doesn't matter. There's an expectation that you at least do the minimum, which is understand the rules of the game in your class.
Unless you're a complete newbie who just ends up randomly in a
and I
pickup
said
game,
that.
which have happened. Like the first time I played 3.5 versus randomly decided, I have no idea how it worked. But people were willing to help me, and I was willing to listen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you don't have to do all the work to get into it and find out, I did one session, didn't like it. Yeah, so I agree. Mage's Music says, classic emergent gaming. You establish something, it becomes part of the scenario. This is about the Giants, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
so,
I've done that too. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I disagree with this one, though. Well, partially disagree, not fully. An important part of Zero Prep is allowing your players to co-create. If they come up with a city a few miles from the location, let there be a city. Usually no.
No.
I obviously
really
I agree with that, right?
Yeah, that's like the whole 40s philosophy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't do that part.
No.
Because I feel like that they're just the player. They're just the avatar of that character in the world, in my opinion.
And I'm the world.
But that's the thing, like the character live in that world. They know that world, right? So if you let them co-create, you let them make assumption about the world. So you don't have to do the lore dumb because they can decide, I grew up around here, right? I know there's a village behind
that can be
bend,
handled
right?
out of character, in my opinion. They could be like, hey, I'm from this area. Would I know if there is a city nearby? And then it's up to me to using my ideas for the setting to come up with that city. Because in my opinion, if you leave it to too much co-creating for the player, you just end up with gonzo nonsense. You just end up with dildo swagons going to the Emerald City.
Yeah, if you have retarded player, that's a problem. If your player are very stupid, but I don't play with those kind of people.
Oh, yeah.
So vetting your player for I wouldn't advise co-creation.
If beforehand, If beforehand you all agree, hey, we're gonna co-create this setting and we're all gonna actually take care to make it make sense, then sure.
Yeah.
But it's not my standard way of playing.
We did that for Crossface's 0E game that he ran a while back. He ran Delving Deeper actually, which is a 0E clone. And so this was before the game started, and I was playing a cleric. His name was Sancho, the cleric, because I was reading a lot about the Reconquista and stuff like that at the time. So there's lots of Basque kings that were named Sancho, and I thought that was cool. So he let me, for instance, come up with the religion and the order that my cleric was from, but this was before the game started, and I think that sort of thing is fine. I think there's a point where you have to draw a hard line on the co-creation thing in general, where you're
there's limit, right? You cannot just make up stuff that doesn't make sense, or make up stuff that would give you a direct advantage in the situation, right? It's little stuff like background stuff. It's detail, making the world more alive.
Hey, let's bring this back. It's not a 4D discussion, but so let's bring it back to this. But maybe that's a topic for a future episode, because I'm in the middle. As always, I'm in the middle of both of them. So let's move on to the next question. But before I do that, let me put this up here. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to read. If you think you have some presence or charisma and the ability to entertain and educate, a good AV setup, and an interest in discussing tabletop RPGs in this format, join the Some Rando RPG Livestream Discord. The link is in the description to stay tuned for future topics. I've already posted no dates or anything yet, but I've already posted the tentative list of topics for the first half of 2025. So I'm getting those nailed down hopefully in the next few weeks here. So that's stuff out. But you can go check that out. There's also still room open for, I think, every topic in November and December. I think they all still have at least one spot open for this year. So you can check out what topics we're covering and help us get to know you. And maybe we'll let you come on and talk about your experiences. All right, let's move on to Victor here.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I got to do this. Otherwise I lose track. How do you balance the improvisation with maintaining a coherent setting, campaign, or story?
I think that just comes back to having a good understanding of the genre you're running, and just having I don't know, maybe a little bit of experience just with world building and settings and all that stuff. And yeah, I don't know, just knowing what works and doesn't work. Yeah,
I guess
it's
the intent
kind of a
of
hard question. Yeah.
well, I guess the intent of the question is players, especially in more sandboxy style games, like to say there's a city here now, or they like to make assumptions about what may or may not exist. And if you don't have a world built, and I'm going extreme intentionally, but if you don't have a world built that dots every I and crosses every T, things can get what I would term clown shoes. How do you prevent the clown shoes?
Well,
Or do you
I think
care?
that
I mean,
I'm not sure that has anything to do with zero prep though. That is just making sure your players behave. like if they assume that if Mr. Max says, like they just decide that there's a city there like 20 miles away, then it's my duty as a GM who has a specific idea of what kind of setting I'm running. It's like, no, there actually isn't a city over there. There's a city to the west that's 40 miles away, and it's called Dingleberryville, and I don't know, but yeah, so yeah, that just comes down to just educating your players and like smacking them down if you need to. But
okay, so what types of games? And again, I'm basing this on because we talked about this a little bit beforehand. What types of games or genres do you find work best for zero prep GMing?
Just standard D&D type fantasy, kind of like sandboxy, you're in the wilderness type stuff. It doesn't work quite as well for something like Call of Cthulhu, in my opinion, because that is very you have to have like very concise like investigations that lead to a specific like outcome, a specific solution. But if you're just like running a sandbox and you're just a bunch of adventurers in the wilderness, and you could even do that in a modern setting, like what if you're like a special forces team in like Mexico and your job is to like take out the cartel, and you just have like a big map of Mexico and you're just going around doing like all these Black Ops missions. You could probably do that as a zero prep thing. But yeah, I just usually find like a sandbox type setting rather than like a strictly confined like in a specific location type setting, if that makes sense.
So you think that an investigative type game, it'd be harder to do zero prep? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, moving over to Basic Expert over there. Same question for you. How do you balance improvisation with maintaining a coherent setting, campaign, or story?
Well, I think like if the players are creating something, it's well within, since you're adjudicating the rules and everything, it's well within your purview as the referee to corrupt what they're creating. So, well, let's use the example that the players say there's this, they determine somehow that there's a city 20 miles to the west. Well, you can say like, well, maybe the city is under siege. Maybe the city is burned down. It's ruins now. Maybe it's a normal city. And yeah, I think you have to be able to just say no to players sometimes too. Like, if they're starting to be ridiculous and they're like, I don't know. I don't even know what an example would be because I've not actually experienced that at my table where something like egregiously ridiculous has occurred.
Yeah,
where I've had to actually give a very hard no in that respect. But you have to be able to say no, and I think also like a proper game, to the second question as well, that has the proper tools for doing it. So I think a game that focuses on exploration is going to be a game that's going to be better for zero prep. Like AD&D 1E, you have like the hex generation rules in there, where you can generate wildernesses hex by hex, and then you can put like ruined cities in there. You can put it can generate dungeons and tombs and crypts and abandoned temples and things like that, as well as cities, villages, and thorps and things like that. So, I think that proper tool set with good tables. Either if the game doesn't have the tables, I guess you have to do some prep and actually prep that part. That's the one part that maybe people don't understand is I think with zero prep if you're going to use a system knowingly that is insufficient for zero prep, you're going to have to build the tools before you run the game in order to run it in a zero prep manner yourself, which at that point, it's sort of like, I don't know. I feel like you're shoving a square peg in a round hole at that point. Use use the games and the tools as they're appropriate.
Okay.
But yeah, I think being able to say no and having good tools, good curated tools, is a good safeguard from keeping things from getting out of hand.
You may have already addressed this, but I'm going to ask the question a little more directly in case you haven't. What role do player inputs and actions play in a zero prep session?
So like take my white box game, for example. I told them, all right, first session, you guys are starting in this village. It's called Linktree. I rolled on some tables to generate some leads and some they weren't fleshed out beyond just being leads. Like there's kobolds a few hexes to the west, or the east. There's a city to the north. I generated very basic things because I realized a while back that you can prep all this other stuff, but if you just prep the basic, if you just not prep, but if you present just the basic world facing things that players are going to experience, the world seems like it's fuller and more richer and real than it actually is, without going like 10,000 years ago, King so-and-so slew the evil, like you don't need to do that.
Stuff that nobody ever reads anyway.
Yeah. And so when I did that, I presented them with these leads, and they could have gone any direction they wanted. They wanted to pursue the kobold thing. So then it was like, all right, well then now I'm going to use the tables to generate the content for the kobold's lair and stuff like that. But they could have said something like, there's a desert to the northeast. Like, we just want to go explore the desert. I think that's a perfectly valid thing to want to do as a player. Like, maybe there's ruins and treasure in the desert. Maybe there's a dragon's hoard in the desert, which there actually is at this point that we've generated in the game. So there's anything like that is like the players just have to be willing to set goals for themselves, which could be, I want to explore the forest. I want to explore the lead that you've given. I want to question some NPCs, and then through the oracles, if I don't have anything in mind, I can use the oracles. I'll determine if they know something about what the player's asking about or not. So I think that it just takes a player who's willing to set goals for themselves and try and chase after them. That you have like infinite content generation at that point, because they're being a good player, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Max Boivin, how do you balance improvisation? Now, you're probably going to be on the other side of this, so I can't wait to hear your take on this. How do you balance improvisation with maintaining a coherent setting, campaign, or story?
Even if you don't prep, you can still take notes, right?
Yeah.
You make something up on the spot, it become canon, right? And then you remember it, and then like that become a reality of the world. So you don't need like that's how you keep your consistency on the wall, right? Just like that's a big part of it. So that's the secret. And also, like, because I like to have player bring their input and stuff like that, I like to have, like, I think a big thing that help, right, is keeping your setting. Like, I hate world build. I like world building as an exercise, but I hate world builder. Like, if you have to give me like a fucking lore dump before I join your game, I'm not interested. I don't want to fucking read your fucking lore, nerds, right? Just like, stop it, because it doesn't add anything. Like, you see people they want to do that because they think it helps immersion. Like, they're gonna say like, oh, I'm gonna make a calendar for my world, and I'm gonna every way of the week is gonna special word and stuff like that, right? I get what you're trying to mean, but that doesn't help anything. It doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help immersion, because now every time I want to talk about like something is gonna happen next Tuesday, I have to look at my sheet to remember the word that we use for Tuesday, right? So that's breaking the immersion. Just fucking call it Tuesday, and gonna say it's next Tuesday, right? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't add as much as you think it does, right? Having all this history and stuff like that, keep the thing mundane that people can make assumption about it. And like what you were asking to Victor, like the best setting to like keep a setting that people understand enough, right? If we go with basic fantasy, there's like rules and construct that we probably share on the table of what makes sense in that world, how the setting is. If you want to play a modern game, right, you play something like, oh, it's set in 1992. We all lived through those years. We understand what is and what isn't, what is allowed, what makes sense, right? We can play in that, right? Or so, if you have people that are very into like cowboy movie, right? We're gonna play a Western game. People know the assumption. Things that are harder, sci-fi much shorter because we don't have the same set. Sci-fi goes in every direction. You cannot just say sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
So now like everybody's gonna pull on in their own direction. If you want to do it, you have to make like stricter, what's the word I'm looking for? Stricter like line and like wall and
Boundaries.
veils
You
and
definitely
lines.
have to. You definitely have to define it more because I mean, science. Science fiction can be everything from like Stargate all the way out to crazy Doctor Who meets Star Trek. You can do everything and anything.
But if you do
transhumanism, right?
If we say, okay, we're gonna play in this Conan-like world, then everybody's somewhat familiar to Conan, the Conan tropes, right? Then
Chainmail bikinis, baby.
Yeah.
exactly. Then exactly. But then it gives you like a common understanding that we can like all operate throughout that. And then if somebody make up something on the spot, GM or in my case player, we just take note and then it becomes a thing, right? And I really like what John said too. Like it's like, yeah, you can corrupt what the player inject. That's your prerogative. Like you don't necessarily want to go like, no, actually it's not like that, right? Sometimes, oh, there's a city 20 mile east of here. No, actually there's 120 west, right? It doesn't matter. It can be east, it can be west. But if you don't want the city to be there, right? Or maybe it was there, maybe it's been burned, maybe no, it's empty, right? And now it's a mystery. You have something interesting going on, and that's
Okay.
I've been
it's funny. You said something in there, but about the calendar. The one that drives me crazy is when they come up with new words for things, and it's like, just speak English, please. Unless you're trying to be like Elvish or Orcish or whatever, but I'm not learning a new language to play this game for the basics of playing this game. And I've got a couple behind me that do that. So Mr. Max, how do you typically start a zero prep session then? And why do you choose that approach?
It depends on the game we play, because oftentimes we're gonna agree on the premise in session 0, or some session 0 that sometimes can just be like some message on Discord, right? Whatever, right? Just say like, I want to play a game where like I want this is what's gonna happen, right? It's not even a plot per se. It's not a storyline. It's not even a hook. It's a premise, right? This is the world. This is what happened. Sometimes we just do it like on session 0 all together. We want to play. All right, we haven't done that. Let's do that, and then we just like fucking go on from there, right? But depending on the premise, like sometimes like I really like the in media res kind of beginning. Like we say, okay, we agree we're gonna be like those, like Victor was talking about, like monster hunter and like cryptid hunter or stuff like that. Okay, then we're gonna start where like we're just arrive in this place where we have lead whatever, right? And we start there, and there we go, right? Just like, and I do tend to play with players that are very proactive. So you just say, okay, now you're here, and then somebody's gonna start talking, and the session start, right? Just
okay.
They take the lead.
All right. Anything you guys want to follow up with each other on?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the next segment is going to be on the misconceptions of zero prep. I even starred 1 or 2 comments that lean into that.
I see some.
It's the misconceptions of zero prep. Before we do that, we'll hit a couple of the comments here. But no, I'm going to do that first. Otherwise, I'm going to throw myself off. So the first one is Not Your Echo says, zero prep presented as a one truism assumes that 1, it's universally preferred playstyle, 2, eliminates GMs and players with poor natural improv skills and motivations, and 3, ignores the iterative refinement of prep.
Well, I would say that that's completely wrong, because no one's ever said that it's a one true way thing.
Yeah,
so
that's what I wanted to say. It's an option. It's an alternative. We never said it's what you have to do. But people online, the moment you have an opinion about something online, people assumes that is your only opinion, and that's the way you think the game should be.
Well, Victor, do you like pancakes?
Yeah.
Why the hell don't you like waffles?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, it's not the one to raise them. It's an option. It's an alternative. If you want to write a whole lore book this thick, go right ahead. If you think that's fun, I think that's fun sometimes. I actually do prep. Like I said before the game, I had a campaign idea. I'm writing a whole game for it, like an actual game system for it, just for a campaign idea. So yeah, that's prep. But I can also see the merits of so-called zero prep. So.
I think it's I think it's the one true way. I'm gonna say it.
Well,
Because, you know,
I won't. Well, go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought. Finish.
we
Your
need to disagree on something here sometime, right? Just like we need to have a debate. But the reason is like, okay, people like talk oftentimes, like they say like, oh, it's a role-playing game, and they want to do this fucking stupid thing, right? Oh, it's role-playing, yes, but it's a game also, right?
Yep.
And that fucking annoys me because when they say that, they don't fucking understand what they're saying, right? Yes, it's a role-playing game. The game aspect is also making stuff up as you go, right? It's not only just rolling dice and moving mini and having like stuff like that, right? And combat. That's part of the game aspect, but it's not the only game
the game implies rules, that there are rules, conditions, restrictions, whatever. That's what a game is. A game is something you do that includes a set of boundaries, rules, objectives, whatever it happens to be.
You have a set of boundary in the sense that you want to create a reality that makes sense, right? When you're sitting in the GM seat and like you're not supposed to, the player not there to be your audience. You're not there to fucking read a story to your player, right? You're there to play a game with them, and you putting yourself in the situation, like the prep is oftentimes a safety blanket. Get rid of it, go there, make yourself vulnerable, and play a fucking game with your friend. Like where you make stuff up on the fly, they react to it, you react to it. Why do we even fucking roll die? We roll die because we don't want to know the outcome of what's gonna happen, right? That's part of the game. But also reacting to this thing and putting it out on the fly like that, like putting out stuff like, oh fuck, the player did something I didn't expect. Now I have to react to that and make sure that this reality keep making sense and keep being believable, right? Because that's the boundary of the game we play, right? We're trying to see what happened, right? And create this alternate reality that makes sense, that is believable. So that's the. So I think if you really want to play a role-playing game, don't fucking read a story to your player. Play a game.
Okay, John, you wanted to say something?
Well, I'll say I don't believe the reason why I don't like Vic and I at least I've not used it's the one true way thing is because I think that zero prep is a higher level form of gaming. It's a higher, you need to have rules mastery, so that means you got to read your book, and that's obviously a hard thing to ask people to do in the hobby these days, to get people to do. So you got to know the rules, and you got to know them very well. You got to know where the tables and tools are that you need to adjudicate things are at. So it's not that I'm opposed to prep. Like I think a lot of people think that because I have a certain preferred way of playing, it's like I'm going to send like the RPG police to come and kick your door down and arrest you for having written down some ideas on a piece of graph paper 20 minutes before the session. Like I'm not advocating for that at all. No one is. And so it's kind of a straw man to do that. But I think people kind of have to do that. And I'm not saying that the commenter, who was it? Not your echo is this way. I'm not saying that like this person is feeling that way. But what I think a lot of the pushback comes from zero prep. Against zero prep from a lot of prep. I'm going to call you guys prep addicts because I think you guys are kind of addicted to prep. But from prep addicts is that they see people having fun with significantly less effort and think it bothers them. I think so. I think that's part of it. And so, and I'm not saying again, not your echo, that's you, but generally, because I've had people explain to me like the merits of prep, like, oh, prep is so great, it's so good. And they'll like explain this conventional game to me. And it's like, yeah, I understand the conventional game. I ran it for years. I ran multi-year long campaigns with high prep. I understand what it is you're talking about and the way the game feels and runs and what you expect. But what I'm talking about is I found this other way to play that I like a little bit more personally for my own preferences and my own games and my own table. And especially with these specific rule sets that have very good tools for running the game this way.
So I think what sets people off, and I'm not trying to change the topic here, and we do need to move on to the next comment, but also, Vic, if you want to add something to it, go ahead in a minute here, is, so one of the things you said is, it's higher level play or somebody's a prep addict. And look, I know where you're coming from. I think this is a great discussion, but when people read that stuff, whether it's on Twitter in a forum post or whatever, that elicits an immediate reaction. It's like when one bozo that we talk about on occasion here says you're mediocre. Well, the implication of that is really that you suck. Well, I didn't say you suck. I said you're mediocre, but there's an implication with that said with that. So I can see why people react the way they do, but I do think that they are overreacting to the idea. So let me put out one more point because it came from your Gilded server. I think it was Crossface that said this, and it actually really made me rethink my stance on this to some degree. And it's when he said, "Hey, do you ever just wake up in the morning or just start go over to your friends, hang out with them, whatever it is, all of a sudden, hey, let's play D&D right now." And that's it. We used to call it informal when I was in high school. So this is in the 80s and early 90s. When I was in high school, we called it informal gaming. That was literally zero prep. We rolled high-low because we didn't always have a D20 on us or flipped a coin, whatever. We ran through some scenarios like we would with D&D characters and moved on, and we had fun doing it.
Yeah. I think what it is though is like they're maybe offended when I say it's like a high level form of game mastering. But I think that it's not meant to be like an elitist phrase. It's because it is. It's because you have to read your rule book and you have to really know it, and you have to have a very deep knowledge of lots of different media and stuff like that. So it's not to slander people or to make you like if you're prepping.
We didn't. Yeah, so good, John. Sorry.
Well, it's not to make you feel like, oh, you're less than or something like that, because I don't feel like I'm there yet as a game master, right? Like I still have to prep maps, and sometimes I write things down before a session, or I get the itch and I'm like, they're going to enter this area. I know they're going to go here. And so I kind of want to prep some dungeon rooms. Like I still do that. So it's like, that's why I said earlier, it's like a goal that I always strive for.
Can that lead me into the next comment, or do you need to jump in, Victor?
No, I want to say something. It's also kind of what goes around comes around. We didn't from the outset go in with the idea of like we're gonna like mock people and call them like over preppers and stuff. We just gave our philosophy on Twitter and like all this stuff, and then guess what? People jumped in and were shitty to us. It's like, oh well, like if you just use random tables, you just like just also gonzo. It's just like clown shoes like gaming and like and then but then you shouldn't get mad at us if we get like a little bit hyperbolic and shitty in return.
Yeah,
so
this is fair.
If you don't mind, also there was this other thing I wanted to address, like the point 2 of his comment. We talked a lot about the point 1, right? About like the GM, eliminate GM with the poor natural improv skill and motivation, right? Like zero prepping is also a learned skill, but you won't learn it as long as you rely on prep. At some point, you have to take out the little swim aid, right, and try to fucking swim, right? You need like just cut on your prep, try to improvise more, and sometime what you're gonna come up on the fly might not be the coolest thing ever that you could have thought if you have like a days to think about it beforehand. But it's still cooler because you thought about it on the fly. You are playing the game, right? And like when John said it's a higher form of play, I would agree with that. Because if you just like pre-write a story, that's not play.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not play in the same sense, right? Just like you're just reading it's writing.
Well, react, and I get it because, and that's why I started these 2 comments. We'll get to the second one in a second. Is because I think they really, really, really lead into the next video better than they do this one. But they came in now. These aren't super chats, so I would like to move on to the next one and not beat this down too much here. This one's a very, very common sentiment. So whether it's from Beat Magnet, who said it here, or you can read all over forums, chat, commentary, so on and so forth. Other people said this as well. Sounds to me like zero prep means using a lot of encounter tables. This isn't zero prep. Basically, you're redefining the term. An encounter table is preparation. Zero prep sounds to me like using other people's preparation.
Yeah, that's called playing the game. That is the basis of what you're doing to begin with. You're playing a specific game, so you should know how to run that game. We're not saying just make up some nonsense and we'll just lob and won't even like roll anything. We're just gonna role play and sit there and do this world. We're saying we're going to play D&D first edition. We're going to start on a hex map. And then we're going to use these tools that Gygax carefully, meticulously wrote for the sole purpose of having, like, this random encounters and, like, all this random shit that you can do to, like, run this game. So, yeah, So, of course, we're using other people's prep. That is the whole point of playing a game to begin with.
I think that's part of, like, the redefining of things. We know colloquially what we mean by prep when we say I'm going to prep a session. We know colloquially what that means and what that means here. It doesn't mean reading your rule book. It doesn't mean
learning English.
It doesn't it doesn't mean doing the bare, those things are excluded. Those are like bare basic expectations that you should have. When we say prep, we mean like I got to like draw the dungeon map. I gotta like make
Make
the heck.
NPCs and
Yeah.
the bakery and
I gotta figure
Yeah.
out all the golds in the world. I gotta have all the cities in like a 600-mile radius. Like
I gotta stock the shop. I gotta.
Yeah.
So come on, like that's just a lame gotcha. That like that might work on someone. It's not gonna work on me.
Also, I don't even use fucking random encounter table or random table. So
Yeah.
there you go.
yeah,
Don't need them.
you do zero prep a little bit differently. So
well,
So-
can we go into? I mean, hopefully we'll get to some of this in the future here, but I would like to move on to the next segment unless you guys really want to beat this dead horse.
No, we can move on.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
Okay. So again, the next segment is going to be on the misconceptions of zero prep. And let me go over here, get this up. And of course, if you enjoy this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to all of the panelists' channel. As you can see, I was a little worried that we weren't diverse enough here. I don't have a zero prep hater on here, but they do have some pretty distinct differences that might be worth checking out on their channels. Oh my God, I just about to call you somebody else. The Basic Expert has already mentioned that he's got some on his channel. Mr. Max Boivin on Reactionary Principle Gaming says he's got some stuff on his channel. Nobody knows. Last time I saw Victor streaming, he was fishing, so who knows? But please check out their channel, subscribe to them, and you can find them all in the description.